Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's important conversation: pouches, plastics, and parenting. What every caregiver should know when dealing with those three things. I'm Lily Walla, founder and CEO of Auggie, the platform where parents find community, share trusted recommendations, and then shop vetted products for every stage of your parenting journey. So today's topic may seem simple on the surface, baby food, pouches, what we digest, but has big implications for our children's health, development, and the planet. So I'm so excited to be joined by this incredible group of experts. And Erica, I'll kick it off first to you to introduce yourself, and then we'll do the same for our other experts and we'll get into the conversation.
All right. Thank you, Lily. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Erica Bethe Levin. I am the founder of a baby and toddler food company called Globowl. And the reason we wanted to put together today's panel and this conversation and discussion is because pouches dominate sort of the baby food space and the baby food aisle. And we just wanted to make sure that we're discussing some of the pros, of course, the convenience is there, but also some of the things that you may not know. So whether it comes to the environment, whether it comes to their mouth and their oral development, whether it pertains to consumption and what they're eating. And so we just wanted to have an open discussion to kind of tackle this topic since so many of us are using the pouches. And I'll pass it to either Payal or
Oh,
Dan.
yeah, if you want to go next.
You're on mute.
Sorry, I was like trying to, whatever. Anyways, I'm Payal Adhikari. It's so nice to be here. I am a pediatrician in Chicago and a huge supporter of kids eating real foods. And so when Erica decided to start Globowl, I felt naturally inclined to partner with her on this process. I have researched microplastics a lot in preparation for this talk, but I'm excited to really explain a little bit about what I know on feeding and the importance of healthy eating for infants and toddlers, as well as get your questions, because as a pediatrician, I love getting parent questions. I do my best to answer them, but if I can't, at least it's something that I can prepare for next time.
Great. And you reminded me that if you're listening and you have questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat, and I'll do my best to moderate as we go and make sure your questions get answered. Okay, Dr. Danielle, hi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Daniele Orellana. I'm a board-certified pediatric dentist, and I spend my days here on the Upper East Side in New York City at Bright Healthy Smiles, helping families keep little teeth healthy, happy, and cavity-free. I trained at NYU for both my dental degree as well as residency. But most importantly for today, I know firsthand just from discussions with parents how overwhelming it can feel trying to make the right food choices for your kids,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to feeding.
Yeah.
So I try my best to offer some guidance that's rooted in science, but is also realistic for real life. No guilt trips, just honest, achievable advice to support your child's oral health as well as their development, while aligning with the beautiful mission of reducing waste and skipping pouches.
Awesome. I'm so excited to have you three today. Let's, I guess, start with health implications. And Dr. Pyle, maybe you'll kick us off. Can you explain the potential health risks associated with infants consuming micro and nanoplastics from single-use pouches?
Absolutely. So first, I'm just going to talk about what micro and nanoplastics are. So micro nanoplastics are defined by the size of the particle. They're plastic particles, but they are defined by their size. So for MNPs or micro nanoplastics, they are between 1 nanometer and 5 micrometers in size.
Okay.
As you guys know, we are constantly exposed to plastics in our environment, and all plastics will eventually degrade into these nanoplastics. We use a ton more plastic than we used to. We use about twice as much as we used to 20 years ago. COVID definitely exacerbated our use of single-use plastics. So they're all over our environment, and they're important because these little particles can get into our bodies, okay? For babies' bodies, they're still growing. Their organ systems are still developing. And research in animals has showed that these MNPs or micro nanoplastics, I'll start calling them MNPs, can have really devastating and worrisome health impacts. So these include things like immune dysfunction, neurotoxicity, even psychological and behavioral changes. The way that these plastics get into our bodies is by 3 different ways. The first is dermal, so like through our skin. Things like beauty products, fabrics that touch our skin can eventually get into our bloodstream. Inhalation, so things that we breathe in. And then the main cause is really through ingestion. Things that we eat and drink contain these smaller particles that get into our bodies. It's not only just the food and the beverages that we consume, but also the packaging that they're in. So one study showed the average adult, and this like blew my mind, that the average adult consumes about 5 grams of plastic every week, which is about the same size as a credit card. So it's a lot. And it's not necessarily that all that's getting into your body. It could be just getting into your GI tract and you poop it out, and that's fine. But if some of them are really tiny, they could potentially get absorbed into your body, which is not great. It's definitely not great for adults. It's definitely not great for babies who are still, again, they're developing their organ systems, their brains, they're all still developing at a much faster rate than adults. And as a result, these environmental exposures can be potentially much more harmful for them. As a pediatrician, what can we do? How can I advise my patients for limiting and realistically, as Dr. Danielle was saying, like, how do we realistically do things? We can't get to 0 probably, but how do we do things in a way that, you know, we can control and minimize our exposures, especially for our children? So for those of you who are my patients or who follow me on Instagram, you know that I'm like a very less is more pediatrician, and this definitely applies for nanoplastics. So things like for dermal exposure, less is more. You know, Vaseline is a really good moisturizer compared to some of the other products on the market that have tons and tons of ingredients in them. Not all of which are bad, but they just have the potential to create more problems. Our skin barrier is really important. You know, dry skin has the more ability to let things in. So you do want to keep your skin and your baby's skin moisturized. But again, using really basic products, things like Vaseline that are pure petroleum jelly, limiting your inhalation risk. So, you know, when you use things like humidifiers, just using plain water. I don't like putting, you know, oils or anything in them that could potentially be inhaled by the baby and get into their lungs and their bodies. But ingestion or consumption is the most common way that these particles get into our bodies. And oftentimes it's through the container. So I know when I had my kids years ago, I was like, oh yeah, we all know plastics are bad. So we started using glass and stainless steel. And that was kind of what I could control as a parent. And I didn't realize that it's so much more than that. It's not just like reheating your food in glass and serving it on stainless steel. It was like, wait a minute, what is it coming in? Like, what are these containers that are sitting in my cupboard for, you know, a few months before I get to them? And are those like plastics leaching into the food that I'm then reheating in a good way, but is it already in the food to begin with? So, so really buying things that are not in packaging that could potentially leach microplastics into the food is another great way to limit our baby's exposure.
Yeah, that is so true and relatable. And I feel like if you do one thing, like as a parent, that makes you feel like you've done something good that day, it's like getting rid of the plastic in like the Tupperware and whatever, but it's so much more than that. And Dr. Danielle, when it comes to teeth and these types of materials, but then also let's take it one step further, because as Erica has told me and knows, and why she built her business, which I want you to, you know, kind of give background story on when we come to you next, Erica, is like there's so much sugar in these pouches as well. So can you break down the risk from the plastic on the teeth, but also the ingredients on the teeth?
So 100%, it's way easier, right? In terms of it's an on-the-go item that you can give to your kids. And I know that when I talk to parents, the question always is, okay, I know that this is a better alternative, but when I'm up in the morning and I'm trying to get kids out of the door, right, it's like crazy, it's mayhem.
Yeah.
But these pouches have a more concentrated amount of sugar than if you were to just have a banana or a pear. So your kid is also sucking on them for an extended period of time. And the thing about dentistry and teeth in general is the biggest factor in whether you're going to get a cavity or not, aside from the genetic component, right? You can't control that. You have what enamel you were born with, but is exposure. So if you are having a coffee over an hour versus if you have it in a 5 to 10 or 15-minute period, completely different. Completely different.
Oh God, I've been like sipping on this.
I know, me too.
I
know. I hate to be the bearer, but it's 100% that's how it works, right? So like your body is actually very good at combating when sugar or acid things enter your oral cavity, right? So like as soon as we get something sweet or we get something acidic, your body immediately responds and makes your saliva more basic. But what happens is over repeated exposures, whether it's throughout the day or within the hour, your body gets less and less, for lack of a better word, good at doing that. It gets less potent in adding as much basic ions as it needs to control that acidity and also control that sugar. So again, if your kid is on the way to school and you guys are having one of these pouches, first, they have way more sugar. Second, it's more concentrated. And third, their exposure time is much higher. So for example, when I have parents and we're talking about different alternatives for like treats or, you know, when you're having a celebration, I don't want you to think that you can't have something sweet ever, but there's a very big difference between having, you know, a Hershey's Kiss or 2 or 3 in like a 20-minute window after dinner versus like sucking on a lollipop for a few hours, right? Or like starting it, putting it down, coming back to it.
Yeah.
And these pouches are very much, they totally keep the kid engaged in that sensation of like sucking and using your oral cavity, but continuously exposing you to the sugar. And a lot of times they are also a little bit more acidic than had you just had the fruit or anything else, or even a piece of chocolate. So on that end, it's definitely much more risky, and you're exposing your kid and making it a greater likelihood that they're going to have a cavity. But from the microplastic component as well, I mean, you would know more than I, Dr. Payal, but if you're sitting there sucking on the item and it is contained in plastic, you are more than likely getting a larger amount of these micro and nanoplastics in your body than if you were just, you know, having the apple or having the Hershey's Kiss. So it's kind of, I get that it does make things more convenient for parents, but really and truly, you're only supposed to have at max 25 grams of sugar. For kids, I believe it is 6 through 15. So in these pouches, if you turn them around, which is the first instruction I give all parents, if you look at the sugar content, they're always already at like 18 or 20. So in one pouch, right, you've already essentially pretty much hit the limit, and that's, you just started this morning, or maybe it was a snack in their lunchbox. So for me on my end, those are the things that I try to get parents to understand is, one, yes, we're thinking about sugar, right? Know the number 25, that's your max for the whole day, but also think about it in terms of exposure. If you're going to have one sweet treat, fine, maybe have a little bit of water after, but have it and don't sit there and prolong the exposure.
And then someone just wrote in, when talking about the concentration of sugar, does a pouch with no added sugar make any difference?
If there is completely zero sugar, that's great from the sugar component, but then you have to look at if there's any ascorbic acid or anything that's added. So same thing with like seltzer waters, right? Better than a Coke, but there is still an acidity to it that wears down your enamel. So like, do I prefer that versus the regular full sugar? Absolutely. But the best thing still is the whole fruit.
Yeah. Got it. And I know nobody on this call is necessarily like an expert in sensory development, but does the texture and self-feeding experience of traditional foods offer something that pouches don't?
Correct. So pouches totally, especially because a lot of the contents are mushy. they're not getting your child to practice that motion of chewing and developing your tongue and your TMJ muscle as well, right? Which you do need. So like when they're little, they're using a bottle, or even if they're breastfeeding, that same sucking motion is teaching them that first phase of putting your tongue on the roof of your mouth and using your oral muscles in order to get that nice seal, right? And then it's the same thing. If you're just giving them mushy food, then that second step of development isn't really happening for them. Now, does it catch up later on once they stop using the pouches? Possible, but it's, we're not really sure if it's worth the risk of it.
And what have you seen in your practice, Dr. Payal, from like a oral motor development perspective? Like, I'm sure parents are coming to you, especially who are the first time parent in their friend group, and maybe this is their first kid and they're starting solids and it feels daunting. What should they know about feeding and oral motor development?
Yeah, I always tell parents it's better for kids to chew their food than to drink their food.
Yeah.
So from the beginning, like I love encouraging adventurous eaters. So I always tell families, talk to your pediatrician. Obviously, I have to have that disclaimer, but you want your kids to eat what you're eating in a palatable form that's appropriate for them. But it doesn't have to be purees, right? Like they don't have to be eating a pureed banana. They could mash it up and give it to them. And as they get good at it, you get to a real banana. So from an oromotor perspective, sometimes I get kids transferred to me at 9 months. I usually start this discussion at 4 months, and I say between 4 and 6 months, we got to get foods on board. A lot of just practicing exposure, make it really fun. And then at 6 months, we'll talk about how to really ramp up. But sometimes I get kids that transfer to me at 9 months and they've never had that conversation and their parents are still giving them purees. And it's a lot harder at that point to get them to now use those same muscles to eat and chew foods that they've been used to just drinking, or more passively eating through purees than they would have been if they were chewing.
Got it. Yeah. And that's Erica. Tell us a little bit about Globowl and how you landed on building this company, because it's amazing for introducing different types of foods.
Thank you. And I just learned so much, Dr. Danielle, from you. And like I read about this and study this like every day, but as the prolonged coffee drinking and everything, it's interesting because 70% of kids, and I'll talk about Globowl and some more oral motor stuff, but that 70% of kids that have a pouch have more than one at a time. So it's not just the prolonged one, it's two. Even a percentage of that 70 has 3. So now you're dealing with like prolonged activity of sucking. You're dealing with an overconsumption of sugar. Somebody asked about added sugars. It's not just added sugars. And one apple is healthy, but when you pack 7 of them into a pouch, that's a lot of natural sugar.
Correct.
That's a problem.
Same thing with orange juice, right? Like one orange is great, but I don't need you to have 10 in a concentrated form with none of the fiber that's in the fruit.
Yeah, there you go. So anyway, I wanted to touch on a couple of those things, but actually in transparency, Dr. Payal was my kid's first pediatrician. And Payal said to us from day one, give your kids everything that you're eating. And I was like this very hesitant first time mom. And I'm like, no, I'm going to puree that banana, or I'm going to puree that sweet potato. And Payal's like, I grew up eating like butter chicken or masala, I think it was. And it's like, okay, but I just couldn't bring myself to do the spices and the flavor and even the texture. So I now have a very, very, very picky eater. So with our second kid, I definitely listened to Payal that time. And I gave her coconut curry as her very first food. I did not want another picky eater. I did not want a child with texture aversions. Obviously I didn't want a child with allergies. So, I exposed them early to allergens. So that was kind of the impetus of starting this. Was once I saw that my second baby was loving everything I gave her, from, the coconut curry with shrimp as her first food to saffron pasta. I mean, she ate it all. She loved it. So I just knew there was something to it, because every parent I know kind of universally has a fear of having a picky eater, right? They have fears of allergy. We have fear of a lot of things, but having a picky eater is just kind of one of those generically, universally feared sort of things. And
it's so common.
Yes, it's beyond common. And Yeah, so going back to kind of some of the things that Paya was saying too, we shouldn't be drinking our food. Like you were saying, you don't want orange juice with 10 oranges. Sometimes every once in a while, great, it's a lovely treat, but we should be chewing and eating and developing all of those sort of muscles that you were saying also. And then I think about it very similarly, like the spouted pouches that they just suck on. We have to remove a passy at some point, right? Kids can't suck on a passy forever. And I see kids, eating and sucking on these pouches, even as older children, right? And so, and with bigger appetites and probably consuming more of them than just the two. So your tummy doesn't get the cues that they're, you're full. And so you tend to, it can lead to some bad eating habits, overconsumption and things like that. So all of this transpired to want to create a better option, which is just as convenient as on-the-go pouches. I use them myself, right? I love the idea of throwing them in my bag.
Yeah.
But there's no reason why people carry glass water bottles now. Everybody's, taking note of trying to reduce their plastic consumption. And so why not a glass jar of baby food that's sterile and there's no micro nanoplastics in it. It avoids those. Payal was saying how, we're eating a credit card sized amount of micro nanoplastics. It's a week, right? Kids are having more than that because when you actually, grab the pouch and squeeze it, you're actually squeezing more plastic into the food, potentially.
No.
Yes. So kids are actually, the science has shown that kids are they have more micro nanoplastics in their body than we do. And it could be a direct correlation between the vessels in which we're feeding our kids.
How do other countries regulate these plastics in baby food? Do you know? Or we must be so behind in the US.
I don't think it's a regulation. There's not enough regulation on it, actually. I had a meeting with my state representatives about a month ago to talk about this because there should be more. I don't think it's a matter of regulation in other countries. From my research, people in other countries and all over the world pretty much, not as much Western. I mean, the UK is different, we're different, but they feed their kids what they're eating. They don't go to the store and see a sea of pouches and think, yes, I'm going to give them that mushed up green beans or whatever it might be. They feed their kids what they're eating, and they don't have the same incidence of food allergies. They don't have multiple generations of picky eating kids with food allergies. So it's just, I think, a way of life that we've created here. And it was based on convenience. So it had good intent, right? And that's very important to note. There was never any malice in any of this. But now that we know what we know, I think it's important to make some changes.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I guess for you, Dr. Danielle, are there certain times of day that are worse for consuming these sugary types of pouches? Because I think, like, of course, we're all trying to do our best. Inevitably, sometimes these pouches are convenient. So we're not here to like scare you that you should never, ever, ever be using these pouches. But like food, like other vices, everything in moderation. And I'm assuming there is a better time. Like you don't want to do before nap or bedtime.
Correct. So the way that I like to think about it is, to answer your question, yes and yes, meaning there is a better time in two cohorts. If you give it in the morning and it is a pouch that does have sugar in it, then just understand, although it's better technically in the sense that your body just woke up, this is the first exposure and your body is much better at responding to that exposure, right? Because it's first thing, it's the first one that happened, it's ready, geared up to go. It's good on that end, but in terms of your child's like glucose and regulation, maybe not the best. You just dumped in 18 grams of sugar into your kid first thing in the morning. If it's a non-sugar one, or maybe it's a savory pouch, then better, or that's best.
That is what someone did just ask, by the way. So should we focus on savory flavors? Would that be better than the enamel?
Exactly right. And then the absolute worst would be before bed, because your body has now done its job all day long and has each time incrementally gotten less and less effective at making your saliva more basic and at responding in a quick enough time. And, you know, we all know that it's like kids usually struggle or don't love to brush their teeth. So add on top of it, if maybe you didn't get a good brushing in, or maybe you just skipped it entirely, now some is left behind and it's staying there overnight. More than likely, they're sleeping with their mouth closed. So it's dark and it's moist and it's warm, which is what bacteria love. And so they just thrive, and you've left some stuff behind. So they have a beautiful buffet to just pick on and nibble
Oh
on throughout the
God.
night.
That's a good visual.
Yep, that's how I like to explain it to parents, because it's like, you know, they're on vacation while you're sleeping. It's
Yeah.
exactly how they like it, and you left some yummy food. Like, they love glucose just like we do.
Yeah. Dr. Pyle, I want to make sure we're staying on topic, but I'm assuming you get this question all the time. So I feel like you are the best suited to answer tips for a new mom who's about to start solids.
Oh,
Like if that came in the chat, so I want to make sure we answer it.
yeah. My first rule is have fun with it. Do
Yeah.
not make it stressful. You know, at the beginning, it's all about, you know, them learning, you learning about how to feed them learning how to eat. So, you know, start with letting them take things off your plate that are appropriate for them, developmentally appropriate, and also no honey, no choking hazards, of course. But, you know, just mash up something you're eating. If you're eating oatmeal, mash it up a little bit, offer to them a banana, avocado, anything that you're eating that they think they seem to be interested in, start to offer it. If they're not interested, try again another day. If they're grabbing for your spoon and like really going for it, let them have as much as they want. Again, at the beginning, it's like it doesn't matter. You could do it 1 time a day, you could do it 3 times a day, you could skip days if you're busy.
I
It doesn't
love
really.
that you said that.
Mhm.
Like, we got to say that again almost. You can do it on your schedule. Because I feel
Yeah.
like so many parents are like, we need to do it 3 times a day. And that is not true. So thank you for saying that in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like it's just for fun. So, you know, don't stress yourself out about it. And then if you know, once they get good at it, the goal is to like really quickly move on. So like if a kid is like loving their mushy food, start to make it a little thicker, a little chunkier until they're eating what you're eating, just cut up in small pieces.
Well, and then just quickly, what are your takes on those silicone mesh feeders? Maybe anybody who feels like they want to open this one. I answered this one, sorry.
I mean, for me, silicone is less harmful than any of the other alternatives. So I'm okay with silicone, but again, same thing, I'm also kind of limited, right? Much like the pacifier that Erica was mentioning. It's like the same way you don't want your kid getting reliant on that, you don't want them getting reliant on the silicone mesh feeder also. You want them to sort of learn to use their muscles and their gums and their teeth as they're coming in.
Got it. And Erica, there's a lot of questions coming in just generally about plastic versus stainless steel or glass bottles. So I'm sure your friends are constantly asking you for recommendations given what you do for a living. What can you say about glass bottles versus plastic bottles or plastic cups versus stainless steel?
I mean, I'll go back to saying kind of just what I was saying before in terms of general plastic consumption and micro nanoplastic consumption. Clearly, it's best to use this, you know, a container that's more sterile, like a glass container, or a glass bottle, just to avoid those kinds of things. Now that we know what we know, right? Now that we know that we're ingesting these as often as we are, and that babies' bodies are still developing, it's all the more important that we're taking, you know, precautions and doing what we can to make sure that we're avoiding those as much as we possibly can.
Yes.
And so I would always say, you know, do what's comfortable to you. Like Dr. Pyle just said, don't have fun with it. You can't stress about it. You know, I have 2 kids now, and they're out of this phase. And I wish I felt that way with my first kid. I wish I could have had more fun with it. We're so nervous as first time parents. And so I don't want to scare anybody or make them feel like they're making a bad choice. We all are going to make the choices that are right for our families. But when we have the knowledge, we have kind of the research, and we can take all of that into account and make our decisions. However, there is a danger, you know, to consuming these micro nanoplastics, especially in developing bodies. And so we should do our own research on that. We should do what we feel comfortable with, but just know what they are, know what the hazards are, and then, you know, make your decisions from there. We have personally in our life taken gotten rid of single-use plastic water bottles, like any sort of plastic Tupperware. We now serve our kids. Someone asked about plastic spoons.
Yeah,
They are now, yeah, they're now using, I mean, they're still quite little. My youngest is 5, but they're using regular adult spoons. I actually got rid of even their paper, their plastic plates. They actually have they're kid sized and made for children, but they're glass like ours, but they're divided just like the plastic ones are divided. So there are options out there if you do want to kind of make
stainless steel. I've seen some great options with the
same.
dividers. Yeah, and I just dropped a company called Pure Stainless. I actually just spoke with this team and I didn't realize they're the only non-plastic bottle. Even a glass bottle has some plastic, like the thing that you screw on the nipple with. These bottles, and they have kids' cups and everything else, are 100% plastic free, from the lid to the nipple to the
That's great.
to the cap, because even on cap on a lot of bottles are plastic. So if you do want to check it out, check out this company. And my son's 3.5, and I recently, I would say like 6 months ago, switched to, he's just using normal silverware. Dr. Pyle, what do you recommend to patients when it comes to products for them to start with? Like, I'm assuming fingers in the beginning are
That's safe.
Yeah. I mean, whatever they're interested in. And, I actually, when my kids were little, I kind of had this thought process of like, they're putting these plastic spoons in their mouths. And I was at a coffee shop and I saw those little like Demitas like spoons that they use like stirrers. And I was
Yeah,
like,
like
oh,
those
they were stainless.
adorable little ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, they're stainless steels. And I was like, those are so cute. So I ended up buying like cocktail forks, like cocktail spoons,
That's
just because from a size
Brilliant.
perspective, they were so much more reasonable. And of course, like, I mean, I'm sure Dr. Danielle sees this all the time, like mouth injuries. You have to be really careful when a kid is putting something that's like hard in their mouth. Like you just have to be careful that they're seated, they're not playing.
Yeah.
But I mean, they could injure themselves with a plastic spoon or fork anyway. But it actually was really nice. And then I felt not so bad about putting this stuff in the dishwasher because you know how
Yep.
heat affects plastics and leaching into stuff. And so we really haven't used plastic in a long time. And there's definitely options. I know there's probably not toddler stainless steel spoons, but there are toddler sized stainless steel spoons in the cocktail section. So
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's not really on topic, but you don't always have to buy things that are specified for a baby, right? Like there's plenty of things that they can use. Think about the way they have fun. It's usually cardboard boxes and pans and pots, right? So you don't always have to just go right to the baby aisle and look for, mini spoons or something like that, like Dr. Pyle was saying.
Yeah.
This is an interesting question, also kind of off topic, but I think relevant for this group of experts that came in. What about toys? Should we just focus on wood toys? Also, what is the best way to clean them? Is there a safe wipe?
That's not a me question. I don't think. I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, like we try to avoid plastics in our home in general. And when it comes to cleaning, I use organic, natural cleansers and cleaners like soap, dish soap. I also use, alcohol for sanitizing. I would assume, Dr. Pyle, that those are safe. I mean, I can't imagine there's anything wrong with dish soap.
Yeah, I think soap and water is probably the best thing to do, or some sort of non-toxic spray cleanser would be best. I don't know if there's a right answer to that, but that feels like a good answer.
Yeah, anything non-toxic, especially if your kids tend to put their toys in there. Which most do.
Yes.
I just sent a brand that also is,
Great.
I'm hesitant I don't love to use the word safe because, there are so many things that go into what that means. But this is a brand, Molly's Suds, that I use in our house. We use laundry detergent, wipes, her spray, and we really like it. And it seems like this crowd is very interested in plastic in general, which I love. And we had another event yesterday on this topic. So when sending out the recording for this event, I will also send you the recording on that event, because what I learned there is sometimes even silicone, when it has the dye, the color in the silicone, affects how quote unquote safe it is. And oftentimes when you put food on these silicone plates, they end up tasting soapy. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. And so there are wood plates that you can use, and stainless steel, like Erica was saying, and glass.
And bamboo's an option.
Bamboo, yes. Yes. Is there anything else you think people should know when it comes to this topic?
I was going to say something about, so with baby food in general, and as you start feeding, and it's just become a big topic of conversation, as well it should. Heavy metals in baby food, and bear with me because I do have a point. Some of that is unavoidable, right? I mean, a lot of it. There's not a baby food company that I know of that's intentionally putting in heavy metals, right? We have, we have to take, care of our earth. And right now, there's a lot of pollutants in our soil, in our air, and our water. So some of that is unavoidable. There's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
Even organic, right? You go to the store and you buy an organic sweet potato. It's the same thing, right? It was grown in soil. So the thing that we do have more control over is the vessel and kind of the what it's held in, so if these pouches are squeezed, as I was saying before, you can leach more in it, or if you heat it up, because some parents do heat them up because they want them warm, even worse, right? So I'm just saying there's certain things that we can control and there's certain things that we can't. We do our best, but this is something we can control, and why we felt like this was an important topic for us to discuss today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's making me reconsider what I have in my fridge, for sure. But in a good way, in a way that makes me feel almost empowered, because we have the control. The last question that came in was like, how would you respond or try to explain this to caregivers and grandparents who just want to lean into the convenience? Like, I would say, like Dr. Danielle, what you were saying in the beginning, you were like, I'm going to answer with science some of these questions.
Yeah,
but what would your
exactly.
advice be?
Yeah, my advice would be, it's gonna take work, but really it just comes down to educating them the same way that it clicked for you, right? So whatever it was for you when you learned or heard or read about this topic, you can share that as like a, 5-second pitch to whoever your caregiver is, right? Like, we don't want to use this because X, Y, and Z, but in the way that makes sense to you and as well as your caregiver. But it's exactly that, like, you want them to understand this is not you being nitpicky. This is not you trying to make their job harder. I know that a lot of times we feel pressure, especially from parents and extended family who are helping out, but they want to do things the way they did them, right? Or they like don't understand why it is that you're, being so forceful about something. But the reality is, this isn't about you and me, the adults, it's about the child in between us. And we now know, right? Like Erica was saying, this is what is best for them. So help me do what's best for them. Because I think if you ask someone person to person, help me versus I'm telling you what to do and you need to follow my rules.
Reframe.
Correct.
Yeah.
It comes across a little better, right? Like, just help me help this little person that we both really like.
I like that a lot. I like that.
Parents, I think what I found, and this is just anecdotal, but like my parents, if I try to tell them what to do, they just know they did it better. They're just not, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's like, they're going to do what they did. And so I've had to let go of just like certain things. Like, they are going to give them cookies before dinner. Like, there are certain things that like come with the territory of them spending time with grandparents and me getting some help from them. And we do what we can as much as we can. And,
exactly. And when you can, and in the way you can, right? Like, if you know that is the battle that you're going to always have, like Erica was saying with your parents, then maybe just be like, okay, but please have them have a glass or a sip of water after they have their cookie or their ice cream, right? Like, it's a compromise of like, you are dead set on doing it this way, but let's also try to mitigate that risk that comes along with doing it your way.
I often tell families, I get this a lot in my families because they're like, they have the grandparents and the caretakers who are involved. And I always say, if there's something you feel really strongly about, just blame me. And I feel like a lot of times the grandparents and the nannies will take, if they say, oh, the pediatrician said we can't have them co-sleep or whatever. And it takes the pressure off the parent. It's like, you don't want to be the bad guy, but if I'm the bad guy, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm happy, I'm happy to take that role. And so, I think that in a way it's saying, oh, science, but it's kind of just putting the blame on somebody else. And I find that, can be helpful. And I also wanted to touch on one more thing about pouches I was just thinking about, which is that, it's really important for kids to see their food. And with pouches, like there's no visualization of what they're eating. And it's very homogeneous. Like even if you were to put it on a spoon, it looks like mush. And so when you have real food made with like real herbs, and I get this question all the time. I tell parents I have 2 rules: no honey, no choking hazards. And the parents will be like, but also no spices, right? And I'm like, no, 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 no. Those are the only 2 things. Everything else they can eat. And it's great if you make a sweet potato and put some rosemary in there, or chop up some herbs, and then they can see what they're eating. They can see the orange with the green, because you don't want them to become those kids that are like picking out the little pieces of something in their food. So, so being able for them to really see like the textures and the colors and the variations in the food they're eating from a really young age, when they're excited about eating and not picky, is so important, and why pouches again are not the ideal food for them.
Yeah, well, I love that you brought us back to pouches, because that's where we started. This is just, again, a question that's coming in, so I'm going to ask it. Any tips on getting kids to participate in the cooking process? And does that help make kids less picky?
Oh my God, yes. This is like one of my favorite things to talk about, is like getting kids
Please.
who are a little bit older. Like I had an 8-year-old yesterday who was like, I don't eat vegetables. And I was like, okay, let's talk about this. So, but no, getting kids involved in the process is so important, because kids love taking ownership. So having them go to the grocery store with you, and I could talk about this forever, Lily. So if we want to do I want
to do a whole other event,
do a
because
whole other episode on this.
The mini carts at the grocery store that some have has changed my experience with food with my toddler. Because he gets to go, he gets the cart. So sweet. Anyway, continue.
So it's like, take them grocery shopping, depending on their age and their level of curiosity. You can say like, today we're going to pick a green vegetable, and let them look around, pick out all the green vegetables, choose one. And then if they're, like it's all dependent on your family, but like I like to say, try to cook it in 3 different ways. Like let them decide. So for a cucumber, let's eat it raw. Let's eat it with some cream cheese and seasoning on it. And then let's try cooking it in like a muffin or something. That's not real. That's a zucchini.
You know where you're going with it.
But like, like 3 different ways, and let them choose like, which way do you like the best? And I think when you make it almost like a process and a game, the focus is taken off of the fact that I'm eating a vegetable, and it becomes more like ooh, which one do I like better? And I get to rate them. And kids love that. They love it. I mean, if they're putting all the work into it, it's like they're going to want to try it and come up with an answer. So, so yeah, taking them to grocery shopping, making it fun, making it a game. Again, not a lot of pressure. The more you like force kids, you have to eat this, the more they're going to think,
oh yeah, no,
somehow this is a punishment, right? If they're making me do it, it can't be good. And so, so really just not stressing as much about it, making it more of a joint activity can be really helpful.
Yeah, and Dr. Danielle, I know you want to say something. I'm putting a product in the chat. This is Picalio. They're a wonderful non-toxic brand, and they have this like kids knife. It's wood. Definitely worth checking it out. Dr. Danielle, I saw you wanted to say something.
No, just off of what Dr. Payal was saying, I feel like if you have the child engaged in the activity, exactly, then they can feel like they're also putting in their input, and they can understand and see why we are eating what we're eating. And a lot of parents in our office will actually tell me that as they either are eating or as they're cooking, they kind of talk about, oh, we're having bok choy today. There's a lot of calcium in bok choy. Do you know why calcium is important? And, obviously within limits, age appropriate wise, but you're trying to communicate to the kid, right? Like, this is why you're having this. It's not
what
just
about similar tips? Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
yes.
Me?
Yes.
No, I was good.
Oh, I do have something to say that's
great. Say it.
Okay, that's tagging on to Dr. Danielle. So you were just saying how bok choy has calcium. Great.
Yes.
But we do too. So much of another reason I started my business Globowl is to introduce kids to other cultures through food, right? So like food is also for us a way to teach. So instead of talking, like in my kitchen, instead of talking about calcium, although that's a good thing, and I'm going to start talking about the nutrients of the food, it's like, oh, we're making matzo balls right now because this is what my grandma, or meatballs, because I'm a Jew Italian. We always talk about the stories that they remind us of. And like my aunt in Torino made this, and like, it brings back these memories. And so I think that's also, it's a great storytelling opportunity, and it makes it fun again for the kids. And then the other thing I was going to say about getting in the kitchen was, I always tell my kids, my son who's very picky, especially, that if he'll walk in and I'll have something on the stove and he'll say, oh my God, it smells so good, but he won't eat it. Right. And so I've tried to teach him, and Payal, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like scent and taste and all of that is very much connected. So if he likes the smell of the marinara sauce, he should theoretically enjoy the taste. And so I try to teach him that. And we've gotten past some of his inability to try things by also asking him, because kids have these issues. They have aversions, they have texture issues, whatever. And so we've tried, instead of getting him to like swallow it and eat the whole thing, like at a minimum, please just put your tongue on it and see if you like the taste. From there, we can go to the next step. And that's been pretty helpful for us as well.
That's really good advice. One question also that I saw that I didn't get to was, if your kid is having trouble with vegetables or fruits, what about smoothies? And I'm hearing from this group that the best way to have your kid consume these things, to Dr. Pyle's point, is they need to see what they're eating. But is making a smoothie that's definitely the better route to go than giving a pouch, right? Anything to add there?
I mean, I would say another really good trick that we like to encourage parents to do is mix your foods. So maybe instead make it like pasta with peas, so that they're getting the peas and they see them, but the majority of the flavor is like that delicious meat sauce, or maybe even a little bit of Parmesan sprinkled on top, just so at least they're making the initial connection of like, here are peas, here is the color, here is the texture, but maybe the large flavor profile is not necessarily peas. And that way you're building them up to that.
Yeah, and I like the idea of, even though a cucumber muffin, Dr. Pyle, isn't the direction you were trying to go, but we love baking together, and like we make muffins and things like that, and he gets to see different textures, so that's been helpful in our house.
And Dr. Danielle said too, no matter what, the best way to consume that fruit that would go into a smoothie is in its full form, so that you have the fiber and all those nutrients.
Yeah.
That's right.
You know what has been great also for us is like those banana oat pancakes and putting spinach into them.
Yes, my kids loved those.
Yeah, I love those. I mean, they're delicious.
Yeah, they're delicious. No sugar.
Like if you're gonna do a smoothie, and I mean, this is not the worst thing in the world. If you're gonna do a smoothie, I would say, like Dr. Danielle said, put lots of ingredients in it. Like you can always do the spinach or the kale or whatever. But I would also make it in a way that's visually interesting. So put it in a glass instead of like a clear glass, instead of a container they can't see through. And if you're doing something like, we used to do like a lot of banana blueberry, and I wouldn't puree it to the point where they couldn't see the blueberry. There would always be like those little like skin chunks in there. And I remember at the beginning, my kids would be like, I don't like that. And I was like, no, like I want you to see that there's multiple things in there.
Yeah.
And so I think that's probably a better way of doing it than like completely pulverizing it, where now it's just a pouch in a different form. But at least, put it in a glass, they can look at it and they can see that there's multiple ingredients in there, and have them join you in the process, right? Like have them put all the stuff in the blender, see what all is going in there. And
I love that idea. You're inspiring me. I feel like I should do like a little fruit garnish on top of the stuff that is in the smoothie. Well, ladies, this has been so nice and informative, yet encouraging and empowering. So Erica, thank you for bringing this wonderful group of people together. And Dr. Pyle, Dr. Danielle, Erica, thank you.
Thank you for having us. This was
lovely to be here.
And
It was lovely to meet you all.
You too. We'll do another event.
Can you
So
put our
many more
contacts
things.
info for anyone that
Yeah.
came? If they
Yes,
follow up?
we will follow up with all of that in a DM to you in the Auggie app, along with I'll include the links that people shared too today. Thank you, and I hope it's beautiful where you are because it's finally beautiful in New York.
Thank you
Bye,
guys.
everyone.
Well,
Good to see you all.